Alrighty, it is Friday, December 5th. I'm here with my friend Chase as usual. How we doing, Chase? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I had a good time. How about you?
Yeah, I have family in Maryland. Got to spend a little
Mm,
time with them, so that was actually really nice.
mm,
I've met like like a handful of them, like maybe a few times over the course of my entire life. So it's not been anything where like I'm super close with any of them, except for one family member. But got to spend Thanksgiving with them, and it was like I said, it was really nice just spending some good quality time with them. So can't complain on my
mm.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, let's go ahead and jump into it. Pete Hegseth has been drone striking every boat that comes from any country that has any Latino origin. Anything that like comes out of those countries, he's literally been saying, "Let's go ahead and shoot these boats." Um, Now we're starting to get information that one of the boats that they ended up striking had people hanging off trying to surrender, and then they went ahead and still decided to shoot it down via drone strike and kill those two individuals. So now it's just like now there's conversations about like, is this guy a
Mm.
murderer? Is he committing war crimes? I mean, there's literally the name war crime Hegseth going around. What are your initial thoughts off of everything that you've heard and seen?
I mean, I do think it's interesting because, like, I would argue that, like, the first strike was probably illegal too. Like, if we're being honest, the way in which they're conducting themselves, there's not really been much evidence that these individuals are responsible for trafficking drugs. And also, like, I do think this is very strange where they almost make it so much about what foreigners are doing, but not like addressing at any level the demand and consumption of drugs in the US. Like, wouldn't you focus in on that a little bit? But it continues the theme of like every problem in the America is because like some foreigner, which is convenient, but it doesn't really work out for reality, right? So I think, the messaging that they're just trying to have and then kind of respond to. Um, One, it's switched up a little bit now with this particular, double tap and basically killing them, um, with like no, no remorse or anything like that. And now it is interesting that he's saying, well, I don't know if I was in the room. I like it was just whoever gave the order, which is concerning because you're out there posting that Franklin the Turtle is killing narco terrorists and like as if you're like so aware of these things. But I guess he's busier making memes than he is with understanding what's actually going on. Um, which I say, is very on par for the Trump administration. It's more about optics and branding and like how cool it is rather than like what are we doing?
Or
And like
passing it's just passing the buck, right? Like at the end of the day,
yeah.
like Pete Hegseth was at first saying like, oh, he gave the order, and now all of a sudden he's saying that
Mm,
somebody else gave the order, but he supports them 100% or stands by them
mm,
100% in the decision that they made. And it's like it's the pass the buck off so that like I'm not responsible. And
mm,
it's just you're right. It's a theme within the Trump administration. It's never Trump's fault. It's always Biden's or the
mm,
Democrats or the mainstream media. It's never their own fault. And
no.
I mean, Pete Hegseth is making the perfect child for a Donald Trump because like he is following the playbook by the T because like now it's just like, oh, I didn't commit the strikes or I didn't get the go ahead on the strikes. It was somebody else, but I still support them. This way, it's like now all of a sudden, if that is true, does he get prosecuted? Can he get prosecuted? Because like if he wasn't the one that ended up making the decision, who
Mm,
was? And why was this decision made? And now is there's the possibility that he didn't make the decision. So like now
mm.
he's saying like, oh, I can't be prosecuted because I didn't make the decision.
I mean, no one's gonna prosecute him here. It's not gonna happen. They're not gonna prosecute him for that.
Next 4 years.
And I don't think they'll do it then either, really. But that's just my 2 cents on that. I mean, I think like we're being honest, like this is not the first administration to throw somebody under the bus. I mean, Reagan, Iran-Contra, like, you have Bush with like even the information in his administration, the second Bush. Um, I mean, and there's numerous other instances of this as well, but I do think to me it hits harder because those other administrations they respond in some ways where it's like it's legalese, it's like talk, and where it's like Trump, it's like you're so up in your face, like why would you even accuse us of that? And then like all bold and everything, and then a couple weeks trickle by, a couple things, nothing happens from the things you say. Like it's all words and just trying to feed the base, but the base isn't even satiated now. Like people are getting tired because most Americans are just tired and want things to get better.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care anymore. And like it's a double-edged sword because at the same time, that's why you're not going to have like I think overwhelming outcry about what is going down in Venezuela. But I think the bigger argument is like I mean look at the powers that the president is basically assuming. Like he's not even wondering about whether Congress should be clued into what the policy is in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're talking about possible land strikes in Venezuela, which is basically
War.
an attempt to, yeah, I mean, it's war, but it's also not just war against the narco terrorists, it's war against Venezuela to depose Maduro.
Yeah.
Like that's the end goal here, and that's a slippery slope when basically anybody that you want to label as terrorists and then all of a sudden you're at war, right? Like because you've labeled this group and you're saying that you're all this, you as the president get to decide that we're at war and we get to depose regimes. Now, it's not something that's completely new. We've done it before and other things like that. But it did seem like we kind of got to a sense of maybe these policies weren't that beneficial for us. Maybe these things destabilize certain regions and things like that. And I mean, is that really what I mean, I find it so funny today that, Trump was receiving the which I didn't even know they had this, a FIFA World Peace Award, which seems to me to be comical. Like, what does soccer and world peace like what are we doing here? But I have to admit, like, it's a wonderful play by FIFA. Like, who knew it would be this easy? Just give him a peace prize, and he's been wanting his peace prize for so long, and now he has like a little like the FIFA World Peace Prize. But it's weird that you can get like a peace prize while you're sitting there threatening war on people.
Right.
Um, and we still don't. There's still no clear answers on what the policy is and where we're going with this. So I mean it's twofold. It's both the policy that we're like just slaughtering people basically with no real understanding or, if those people were going to surrender and they had done crimes, then shouldn't they have been prosecuted? Shouldn't we find out more?
Right.
Um, but, I think that's just as concerning both, you know, with both of them. I mean, there's just been no word to Congress, no real interaction, and you're starting to see Congress kind of both sides reacting in a way where they're questioning what's really happening. They're not very comfortable with what's happening and occurring, I don't think.
Yeah, I heard Nancy Mace is considering dropping out of Congress as well. I mean, who knows
Mm.
what goes on with her. Marjorie Taylor Greene has already announced her departure. The reason that,
Hmm.
you know, the current senator for what's it called, North Carolina, that it dropped out after the whole big beautiful bill passing and saying like he had no intention on running for the next
Hmm.
cycle, which is why it's like now all of a sudden Roy Cooper is aiming for that spot. I mean, there's just so much that's going on that like, you can kind of see that there are a lot of cracks within the
Hmm.
Republican Party, which leads us to our next topic. There was an election in Tennessee. Democrats did not win, but it was a deeply red seat. and it was a lot closer than, maybe they would have felt comfortable with. What are
Mhm.
your initial thoughts on the election in Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple different things. It's one, run everywhere in some ways for Democrats. Like right now, the pickup opportunities, there's just so many. And I think it's almost converging because I was watching a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene at a district where she was talking about BlackRock, and it's paired with a lot of crazy. I'm not going to say it's not paired with crazy, but it's this anti-corporate argument in her district because I think there's like a toxic waste plant that they're trying to build in her district or something like that. And it's like just interesting to me that there's people just as angry about, corporate greed and corporate decisions in her district as there are, in any stereotypical liberal, district or anything like that, right? And I think there's a converging of people's priorities, right? Like people are tired of the Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever party it is. It's where's the results? Like, are we improving on the things that we need to improve on? Are we pushing back against when corporations are taking too much, or when, local people who aren't playing by the rules are like abusing things? Like, I think there's a general demand for more from people across the political spectrum. And I mean, I think you see that. You see that not in crazy numbers, but probably some of the people that voted for Trump are voting for the Democrats. Some
Yeah.
of the people who might have like supported some of the things are ended up voting for certain Democrats. And I think targeted messaging and sitting there and not berating people, it can kind of work out. And sometimes like bringing them into the coalition rather than, oh, I care what you did last time. Yeah, don't chastise people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I I'm excited to see what happens this midterms. I feel like, I mean, hopefully we're still alive to see it. Donald Trump just seems day after day like he is ready to end it all for everyone within the United States. So who knows? It's a coin
Hmm.
flip at this point. Um, or if we even have an election, right? Like at the end of the day, Donald Trump, has been pushing all these
Yeah.
Republican governors from
Hmm.
Texas to Missouri, so like and North Carolina to Florida, like
Hmm.
seeing them really aiming to try to redistrict so that there are
Yeah.
maybe he sees that
I don't
maybe he
I don't
sees.
think
Go ahead.
I just don't think they can gerrymander their way out of it anymore.
I agree.
Like when it's plus 22 districts, how much are you going to gerrymander it?
Right.
Like, and then there's also just certain states where either they're pushing back and redistricting their own maps, so then you kind of are losing certain Republican seats. But I also think that there's pickup opportunities in general. Like there's seats that weren't that far for Trump, and that's a seat that you would probably win in a midterm cycle. And when you start winning in certain places and start building up a base, you just build on those, right? Like, I think sometimes the issue with Democrats is they've just given up on certain regions of the country, rural areas, certain states. Like, why would we compete there? We're not going to win. But you build it towards anything. You never have a relationship with those people in those districts. Even if they didn't vote for you, they didn't see ads, they didn't see them mattering. And I think what we might begin to see is there's certain kind of political changes in certain states that are prime pickup opportunities for people. And what I mean by that is Georgia, for example.
Mm.
There's definitely something happening in some of the regions of Georgia where, you know, just the other day, incumbent mayor in the Atlanta region was kicked out and basically replaced completely with it's nonpartisan race, but they were all Dem aligned.
Yeah.
And you also begin to see these like red rural counties that voted for the Democratic candidates for the PSC race.
Right.
But you also see like the maps in Utah possibly giving a Democratic district in that state. So kind of these pickup opportunities there, but you know, there's competitiveness in all these places, I think, that Democrats have. And especially, I mean, if you build on it, you get the right candidates, you don't worry about, whatever the political pundits tell you, you speak to the district. Like, I think that's the biggest arguments that people are, kind of seeing and making now. Um, at least that's my take on it so far. So we'll see
I
how it shakes up.
I always feel it's difficult because like having lived in like a rural area, I see that a lot of them are very strong in their faith. They're very faith-based. And I think
Hmm.
the Democratic Party doesn't do a lot in terms of like trying to show that there are Christians within the Democratic Party, right? Like we hear them occasionally talk about God, like here and there, like you hear a politician
Hmm.
talk here and there, but like whereas like Trump is constantly bringing up God. Recently, it's been because he's afraid that he's not going to be going into heaven. But he is constantly talking about God himself, and
Hmm.
whether he believes in God or not, that's to be de determined.
Yeah.
I, I mean, I don't believe that he actually believes in God, but like I think that it's very difficult for the Democratic Party to actually aim to be a party that is inclusive to all of these individuals when the
Hmm.
reality is like they're not good at trying to reach out to those Christians and like trying to find like the evangelical Christians to be like, hey, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that he's our Lord and Savior. Like
Hmm.
to do something like that, I think would be tremendous in terms of making strides to reach out to those more rural areas because like that is really all they do. Like you go into these rural areas, like I've been, you'll see crosses everywhere. You'll see,
Hmm.
God bless America, like signs like that. You'll see those Trump
Hmm.
flags included. I think that we need to aim to bring Christianity back into, or at least talk about God in the
Hmm.
Democratic Party. Because like the reality is, we our our values align closer with God's teachings than the Republican values, right? They're anti-tax, they don't help the sick, they don't help the poor, they don't help the immigrants. The Democratic Party is we believe in helping the
Hmm.
immigrant, helping the poor, helping the sick. Like we have the values and the teachings of God, but we're not good at saying like including God in our message, which I think if we did that, at least candidates that are running in these
Yeah.
areas, they would they would fare a lot better.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that is, especially where we're from, in our states, the areas of North Carolina and the areas of Georgia, that absolutely almost has to be included. Now, do I wish it was that case always? Like you had to be just completely blatant in those things? No. But I also think that it's like you can't be inauthentic either,
Right.
right? You can't just talk about your faith and just keep going on and on because that can turn people off too.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
I think it's like a combination of just going with what your gut says and what feels right, and not necessarily what feels right to a particular niche group, but what feels like it's not gonna like irritate this person. And like,
Well, I'm talking about like the areas that I'm talking about, like if somebody ran in like Marjorie Taylor Greene's district of like 4 or 5 years ago, before it was gerrymandered, like where it
yeah.
like she got 80% of the or 70% of the vote, right? Like those kind of areas that have like a heavy Christian presence, because like I said, these rural areas, they don't have
Mhm.
much going on around them. The one thing that I will say, like me having lived in North Carolina for the past few years and seeing like what the day to day looks like, it was a huge culture shock for me to move back to DC and move back to a big city because in North Carolina there wasn't all of these restaurants. There was 4 or 5 different restaurants that were actually
Mhm.
reliable, that actually had good food. Everything was a lot more affordable in those rural areas, but like there was less things to do around the area. In
Mhm.
DC, you have museums, you have theaters, you have all of these different things that you can actively go and do. I can go hop on a ferry and take a boat tour. I can go to a museum around here. Like I can go to a baseball game. I can go to a football game. I can go to a basketball game. Like I can go to any sporting events. I can go to tons of concerts. I wasn't given that affordability in North Carolina. I would have to travel an hour and a half just to get to Raleigh in order to see like a big concert. None of those big concerts happen around there. There's not any museums around those areas. And like when
Mhm.
you go and live in those kind of rural areas, you see that the only thing that they really do and they do often is they go to church and they're involved within their church. And so like that's why I'm saying like when it comes to reaching out to these people, like if you want to go to a North Dakota or South Dakota and win, you have to be able to say like, I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I know that you guys don't have much going on around here, but like we are, like I am somebody that is from this area. I'm a Democrat. Like I believe in God and like really push in on that. Like I feel like you would get so much more competitive if you were really involved in your community, really involved with your church. Um, because like I said, I truly believe and from what I've seen and talk to people about is like I mean, they're going to church not only on Sundays, they're having Bible studies on like Mondays and Fridays. They're talking about God with all of their friends. I have a friend at work that in her signature, she literally has the cross from Jesus Christ and it says blessings.
Mm.
So it's like that's I mean, and she's very conservative. So like that's what I'm saying is like she like her and then everybody else is like they're so involved in church community because like that's the only thing that they do have. They don't have those other experiences that they can go to. They don't have those
Mhm.
theaters. They don't have those sporting events. They have none of that. So it's like it's very difficult to say like, oh yeah, like you don't really have to include God when their whole identity is God. Like, think about it as a sports fan, right? Like, say that you're the biggest, Braves fan in the world, right? You buy season tickets, you're going to 81 games, you watch 162 games, all 162 games, all of the players, you're collecting the cards, you're doing all of that. If you took that, like their obsession with that, they're constantly paying attention to that. You take that away, or you try to communicate with somebody that's like not a Braves fan that doesn't understand baseball, you're not going to have a good relationship with them. But if you talk to somebody that, does understand baseball, that does listen to baseball, like if that person
Mhm.
goes and talks to that diehard Braves fan, they have that connection that's like very rare and it's not the same versus, a connection where and with God and Christianity. It's just like, yeah, like I feel I could see myself in that person. And I think that's what we want. I want to
Mhm.
say for the candidates that I vote for, it's like I can see myself in them. I can see that they care about what my issues are and what they're aiming to do. Now, has Trump done that? I have no clue. Like literally no clue. Um, I think that the media has always been a little Trump likes to act like, the media is out against him. But I think the reality is the media loves Trump and they always give him coverage, like
Mhm.
bad and good. And I think the reality is like he has a lot more um, love within the media than he cares to acknowledge. He acts like, he's like the underdog, but the reality is like he's constantly in the news. And like the media
Mhm.
loves him because he's always talking. He always says something stupid. He always has something that's like attention grabbing. Like, I mean, just in the past 2 weeks alone, he's called somebody what, Mrs. Piggy. He's called Tim Waltz retarded. Like, what? I mean, this is in the past 2 weeks. I mean, we're
Mhm.
not even talking about all of the other, crazy outlandish things like his first term. She was bleeding from her ears and her eyes and, a little red down there, or, talking about the size of people, hands and doing stupid shit like that. Like, I don't know how Trump does it. Like, I don't know how he messaged himself to be someone that got into the Christian crowd, but I think that like because he does openly talk about God versus other candidates that maybe like Biden,
Hmm.
I think Biden won because he was openly Catholic. He was openly Christian. We saw a huge outpour of support for him. Kamala, I've never heard Kamala talk about her religion. I've never heard her talk about God. I think that what's it called? You ostracize that group of people when you don't talk about that. So I think the next candidate has to at least be open about talking about God. Not saying that you have to be Christian, but like saying like, yeah, I do believe in God because that is still the
Yeah.
strongest or still the most popular
Mhm.
religion within the United States.
Okay, so basically, the Democratic candidates should get up and they should be like JD Vance and they should say, Christ is king, and that's all they have to do. I'm
No,
kidding.
no.
But my point is that I like aspects of that. And like I do think like you have to connect to those people, but it can't just we can connect with people that are far different than who we are and what we believe and all those different things. And that occurs just as much in rural areas as it does anywhere else. I think we sell maybe I think as the Democratic side, we sell MAGA like they're some study case to be figured out and like how do you talk to these people and how do you navigate this and figure it out? And it's like, I don't know. How do you talk to anybody?
Yeah.
Like people are people, whether it's you're trying to figure to talk how to talk to, a MAGA Republican or a Democratic liberal. Because let's be honest, like there's a lot of Democrats that are hard to talk to too. They're like, I don't know how to talk to you. I don't relate to you. But I think that sometimes we feel this necessity to be, you have to be like me to for me to be able to like understand you and commiserate. But that's not true anymore. Like I think
Not true, but that's generally
no,
what
but I
people
think that's
look.
where we've become. But people long for that America where it's like there is an American culture in rural areas more so than and what I'm saying is like growing up rural and especially like in the South, right? America and Americana and that like 4th of July feeling, as cliche and kind of comical as I think some aspects are of that,
Mhm.
it's very real. And you have what is, I think, a lot of people perceive as this hatred from like the Democratic Party to like everything that makes America great, which is so ridiculous to me because like half the time it doesn't even seem like you enjoy these things that are happening here. And I think you have to bridge that divide where rural, urban, suburban people, you're all looking for the same thing. It might not be the same exact fit policy wise, but I think that's why you sit there, and if they want to talk about God, you talk about it with them. You sit there and talk about your relationship or whether you don't have one.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like obviously like you have to message it a certain way. And I do think hitting on it and being able to go to churches and show up in people's faith lives, that's something that you can note because also a lot of these churches, they're doing the work. They're putting work, and regardless of whether I agree with their politics, their stances, or anything like that, it's like am I going to be mad at a toy drive?
Yeah.
No. That's good. Am I going to be mad that you go out and feed the homeless or anything like that? That's good. And I think plugging into those community centers, whether it's church, the nonprofit organizations that do the work, I think just leaning into meeting people where they are and, getting into a conversation with them. And often, like, I think we also sit there and we worry about what people will say, but people will tell you how they feel and what they care about if you just listen to them. If you just sit there, show up at their door, ask them how they're doing. And I think, there's too much trying to diagnose something instead of just getting out there and figuring it out as you go with those conversations and that real centeredness of like human to human interaction. So I mean, I definitely think also like faith is a very, very powerful conveyor, especially culturally, I think within the Republican Party too, right? Like a lot of Republicans that the talking points that people don't understand in the Democratic Party, sometimes I get
Yeah.
because I grew up being raised in an evangelical church. I went to a Southern Baptist church. Most of those were Republicans.
Right.
And you could understand that despite like political differences years down the line, we were kind of aligned on like a lot of the values and the way you treat other people and things like that. Now, do I think everything went as smoothly as like people project? No. But I say that to say like those values really you really can connect with people deeply if you talk about that. You absolutely can.
The only thing, yeah, and this is what I was trying to get at, which is that I think the reality is like, you can do as much door knocking as possible, but you don't get as many interactions as maybe
Yeah.
two. And so I think the reality is like a lot of these
Mhm.
politicians, you can't go out and meet every single person, which is why you have to include Christianity and God within your message.
Yeah,
And
for
at that
sure.
point, they're able to go and see, like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, like this is somebody like I haven't
Mhm.
met this person, but I know I see him in me. I can see him in my church. He's somebody that I know. He understands the gospel. He understands God. And I'm not trying to be like this Nick Fuentes here, right? Like, I'm, but,
Well,
but like, I personally am Christian myself, but it
yeah.
never mattered to me whether or not the candidate that I voted for was agnostic, atheist,
Hmm.
Hindu, what's it called? Buddhist, uh, Muslim, whatever, right? I
Yeah.
it has never Jewish, it hasn't mattered to me. I have never,
Mhm.
what I'm saying is like when you're trying to reach certain people,
Yeah.
over the past 3 years, I think that my realization, like of living in North Carolina, my realization has been that they really don't have much going on around them, and like they yearn to be involved with something, and
Hmm.
church has always been that guarantee. There's always a church around. Whether or not there's like anything else that's that they can get involved in, that's to be seen. Like maybe you see like maybe one or two baseball parks around there too, so their kids are playing baseball, but like you're not having like grown men going to these small baseball parks and trying to hit the ball, right? Like
Yeah.
that's for when you're like bringing your kids, and then going to games themselves. Like a lot of these states, a lot of these cities don't have their own teams. I met a lot of people that were like huge Braves fans that lived in the middle of North Carolina, never been to the Braves stadium, and they were like they had I remember there was one guy that I went to his house. It was like really random because like it wasn't somebody that I even knew. It was like a friend's friend that I got invited to. Guy had like Braves posters all over. He had a Chipper Jones poster. It was crazy. I was like, oh man, like this is awesome. Like, I was like, when was the last time you went to a Braves game? He was like, oh, I've never actually been to the Braves stadium. And I was like, this guy is obsessed with baseball. He says he loves baseball, watches it all the time, has these posters, but he's never been to a game. I mean, but that's what I'm saying, right? Like you find that involvement in one thing, and if you can like interact and like talk about that one thing, those people
Hmm.
like gravitate towards you. And I think that's, like I said, that is truly what, when I'm talking, and the candidates that I'm talking about are the ones in the North Dakotas and South Dakotas. I'm not talking about like someone in New York City going and talking about God. I'm talking about a candidate like, I mean, they can. I'm not saying that they
I
can't.
mean, isn't that what Zoran did? It's just he was talking about how his experience as being a Muslim and like his experience was that, and not that he made it all his personality, but it's like, why should he have to shy away from the aspects of who he is?
Yeah.
Like that's just an aspect of who he is and what he believes. And I think that definitely in the messaging, but somebody that I think really does it well is like Andy Bashir. He
Yeah.
talks about why he is led to certain decisions in policy
Yeah.
because of his faith and his belief, right? That I see in trans kids the same thing as I see in everyone, right? And I think that messaging is not that different. You can change the whatever group it is and switch all those out, but it should always stay the same, shouldn't it? Because isn't that like, I think what you and I like also understanding is like that's what's fundamentally Christian to me is like caring about somebody else, like not sitting there worrying about all these other labels and things like that. But the thing is I do think some Democrats or liberals or leftists, whatever the different title you want to identify as, you sometimes don't practice those things, right? you sit there and you ostracize, but if you would just hear them out, you might realize that there's a lot of similarities to what they're experiencing and the struggles that, the specific issues that you're worried about that they experience in their day-to-day life. Um, and I think kind of articulating like why you value those people and why you care about those things. That's absolutely like the way that you connect with people. And like honestly, what else are you gonna do? Because it's clearly that you're gonna have to bridge the divide some way, And maybe, it's like a come to Jesus type meeting where it's like that's the only option that you have. And in some ways I think it represents you have to kind of get down to the nitty gritty and the real because if that's what people are just kind of tired, they're tired of this
A
political
facade.
rat race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
facade.
exactly. The facade of everything. Yeah,
Painting yourself
completely.
as somebody that you're not, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that Trump has always done that. He paints himself as somebody that's for the people, but then, like, you can tell, like, any Democrat and most Republicans can do it, but they're just too afraid of, you know,
Hmm.
Democrat taking office. So they say, like,
Yeah.
we'll settle. We'll settle with Donald Trump, even though we know he's a compulsive liar. He's not the nicest person, but like,
Yeah.
just go ahead and vote for him because, like, at the end of the day, he's a Republican. They see the R and
Yeah.
they see that hard R and they're in it, you know?
That's one way to phrase it for sure. Um, I mean, I think just to kind of close it off with like talking about Trump's, I think his superpower is that he doesn't care, but
Yeah.
you've never needed to.
Yeah.
That's the thing that Trump understands that no one else seems to understand is there aren't rules. There aren't these levers of power and all these different things you can push and you can keep pushing, then it doesn't exist at a certain point. And I think that is both terrifying, but also in some ways it reveals that like you don't have to sit there and be so worried about how things are going to be perceived and how things are going to go viral and stuff like that because people will kind of get the gist, right? Clearly, people just felt like he was arguing what they felt with like affordability and things like that, and you have to do the same thing.
I
So
think I think that Donald Trump, you're very right. You're exactly right on that. I think that Donald Trump really learned that through his first term. I think the first few years of his first term, he was trying to play within the rules, but like trying to do his own thing. And then after he lost that election and then submitting the fake electors, I think that he really realized and then running again, now knowing that he was able to get away with what he did in
yeah,
2020 with that election, with January 6th, like
mm,
now he's just like, all right, I know exactly how far I can push things.
yeah,
There's no way that they can ever prosecute me. Because like now at this point, he's too damn old to be, I don't think truthfully, I'm gonna be honest with you. This will be the last thing that I say. I don't think that he is going to live through this term. Or if he does, I think he's got like 2 or 3 years after because he is falling asleep in the middle of meetings. He looks exhausted and he's already overweight himself. So it's just like, I don't know. He doesn't look great, but who knows? We'll see. Anyways, great talking to you, Chase. I appreciate the conversation as usual, and I will see you next week.
see ya.